European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, is defending the EU's trade agreement with the U.S. In an op-ed in El Mundo, von der Leyen wrote that Russia and China would have cheered the prospect of a trade war between the U.S. and the EU, and that securing a single tariff rate of 15% on most goods is a victory. Victor Negrescu is Vice President of the European Parliament, and he joins me now. Thanks so much for joining. We appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for the invitation.
So first, I want to begin on the suspension of mail services for goods valued below $800. I have to imagine that's a good percentage of things shipped through the mail. How disruptive is this for European exporters, particularly small businesses?
This is really disruptive for small businesses, especially and artisans that were shipping small goods to the U.S. What is difficult right now for postal offices in Europe is to really understand how to comply with the new regulation that is going to enter into force. Basically, they need to collect the taxes, and we don't know how to do that. In the same time, the postal services need to transfer those taxes to U.S. authorities, and this has not been defined yet either. So right now, several postal services in different countries, in Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Italy, France, decided to stop shipping. When we refer here to merchandise that comes from European businesses, so they are not stopping the private shipments, but nevertheless, this will have an impact. When we speak about the dimension of this impact, we speak about basically millions of parcels or postal items that are traditionally being sent from Europe to the US. This will have an economic impact, but will also have an impact on people sharing items or exchanging items, which is quite common for US citizens doing that with European counterparts in order also, for instance, to exchange on common hobbies or habits. So this will certainly have an impact. So we need to wait for clear explanation from the US side.
The White House says that it's aiming to combat illegal practices, including the importation of illegal drugs in the U.S. I mean, we should note that's an explanation it has used in previous trade disputes, for instance, the trade dispute with Canada, even when that is a small percentage of actual trade. Does the EU see this as a legitimate concern? Is that, from the EU's experience, a large percentage of trade that goes back and forth under this $800 limit?
So first of all, it's a legitimate concern. Nevertheless, there are no data confirming those claims. This is why we believe that we cannot simply apply a regulation without making sure this will not have an impact on the positive exchanges that are happening right now. Of course, we understand that we need to apply the new tariffs, the 15% tariffs. We have to learn how to do it. Nevertheless, of course, many people that were not paying any tax till now are supposed to pay those kind of taxes. And again, the small businesses, artisans are not used to do so. They don't have the means, but also the know-how in order to apply these respective taxes. Nevertheless, we are ready to work with our US counterparts to find better ways, again, to fight against illegal shipment of drugs or other illegal goods. But again, the dimension is not so significant, or at least we don't have the data confirming those different claims made by US authorities.
The last time you and I spoke, you said that 15% tariffs would be too high, and that was not about trade, but about protecting Europe against its competitors. Where do you stand now? And do you disagree with Ursula von der Leyen, who says that that deal between the U.S. and the EU at least provided clarity going forward?
So certainly we needed clarity, and certainly this agreement is part also of a geopolitical choice, as I said also when we discussed last time. Nevertheless, of course, you probably noticed several European leaders discussing about Europe needing to identify new markets. Recently, the German chancellor spoke about going towards South America. You have different leaders that speak about potentially identifying new markets. We have the automotive sector that expects the 15% to enter into force faster than it's actually being planned to happen. So indeed, in Europe, there is a lot of frustration, a lot of discussions. We are ready to accept the 15%, but we have to be certain that the details are certain. You also know that the negotiators released a few days ago more details about the agreement that was reached. We have to see all of that entering into force. There are some difficulties, but the implementation will prove whether this will be successful or not. But for European businesses, and of course also for US consumers, this will represent a burden, and this will increase the cost of many goods and products coming from Europe to the US market.
The thing is, though, that a lot of countries, when they were threatened with tariffs by President Trump, initially said, we will resist these tariffs. They are not fair. But we're seeing countries line up, in effect, and make deals, EU included, where they're agreeing to higher tariffs on their own goods than will be placed on U.S. goods. It just seems that, in effect, countries are repeatedly giving President Trump wins, and so he continues to apply the trade war policy. I mean, do you disagree with that?
So first of all, we know businesses need predictability. So I'm going to refer, for instance, to the automotive sector. We have a 27.5% tariff rate right now, and we are going to 15%. On some pharmaceutical goods, there will be no tariffs. On aeronautical products, there will be no tariffs. So there are some wins for Europe also in these negotiations. Nevertheless, we understand that this is very important for the US administration, personally for President Trump. And we know that, of course, he also correlates these decisions with other decisions that are crucial for Europe, like, for instance, support for Ukraine, the involvement of the US at NATO level. So it's clearly a geopolitical choice to accept the 15%. Economically, this will become a burden. This will affect our businesses. This will affect probably trade between US and Europe. The US represents 20% of our global market, so this really has an impact on our companies. But nevertheless, hopefully, the private sector will identify new ways forward. Nevertheless, for Europe, this could actually represent a competitive advantage, knowing that other parts of the world will likely have bigger tariffs than the 15%. So probably Asian companies or South American companies will need to apply bigger tariffs, which will allow European companies to actually be quite competitive on the US market, despite the 15%.
Victor Negrescu, thanks so much for joining us.